Oh, there we go. Hello, everyone, and welcome to my channel, Number 9 Talk, with my guests from Toon Army TV. Shaggy, how you doing, mate?
Yes, not too bad, Matt. Good afternoon. Thanks for having us on, and I'm doing quite well. Just a little bit under the weather with what's going on, but I'm nevertheless getting through it. And just looking forward to talking all things Newcastle with you.
Yep, brilliant. Just looking at the league so far, 12th. We've got played 13, won 5, drawn 3, lost 5. It's a bit of a middle and road thing. I mean, we've got 18 points out of the possible 39. What would be your take on them stats? I mean, none of us would have thought we'd be 12th at the moment. So, I mean, it is a bit of a crazy league again. But with Bruce at the helm, not a lot of people would have thought we'd be in this position.
No chance. I mean, the way I see the table at the minute, it's still early days. I believe, without sounding too ungrateful, we should actually have more points for the games that we've actually dropped points in. For example, Fulham, you look at Brighton. I mean, the expectations of the board is to be mid-table. Let's just put that out there. And to see we're 12th before Christmas, a couple of points shy off the 20 points mark, which we wanted on Saturday, wasn't to be. I think a lot of fans would have taken that, at the start of the season because of like last season and obviously Steve Bruce and how he goes about his football. So I don't think we can be too disheartened. But I guess after Christmas, when the games come thick and fast, we're hopefully second half of the season looking for more points.
Yeah. Just looking at the players, I mean, we've lost to Bradford for most of the season, which, we all thought, doom and gloomy. We've lost our best player from last year. But Darlow's come in and done, in my eyes, a fantastic job. But what would be your take on the team at the moment, and run through your thoughts on each player?
Well, I think in terms of Darlow, I think he's been pretty good. He's been sound as usual. I mean, the goalkeeper that got promoted, back to the Premier League, not to forget. And when he's been called upon, he's been fantastic. He's bailed out a lot of times in games this season. And if it wasn't for him, I don't think we'd be where we are. You say 12th in the league, we could be further down the table if it wasn't, for the good saves that he pulls off. And we're not really missing Dubravka at this moment in time, even though he's my number one keeper. I think he's going to find it difficult to get back into the side. But then again, it would just be typical Bruce to give him, that run out and drop Karl Darlow for no reason whatsoever when he's performed quite well.
Yeah. Defense, we've got Hayden filling in at the moment. I mean, down to possibly COVID, and I mean he's had COVID himself. But we've had Fernandez, we've had Lascelles, we've had Mankior, we've had Kraft, and on the left we've had Jamal Lewis. And sometimes bless him. We've had other players on the left as well. So, what would be your run through with the defence?
Yeah, defence for me would be Fernandez, Kieran Clark. I think them two for me have been rock solid. I mean, Kieran Clark for me is unsung at this football club. He always puts in, a 10 out of 10 performance. Fernandez also does the same. I mean, the fact that when Swansea got relegated, we only paid, what was it, £6 million for him? Something like that. Mm-hmm. It's a bargain when you look at it. And they both understand each other's games. Now, at right back, we have massively struggled in terms of a regular right back. Mankior, for me, seems to be my number one choice for now until we can get a proper right back in. Left back, Jamal Lewis, he's been a bit underwhelming though, hasn't he? I mean, at the very start, he was decent. But then recently, of the last few games, he's been, under par, basically. Do you know what I mean? He's just been caught ball watching at times. And I think because he hasn't got any competition, that's allowed him to underperform because he knew at that point that Steve Bruce wasn't going to drop him, but he had to be dropped against Fulham just to make him learn that you can't underperform in this league and that you are going to get dropped. And I feel like, Emerald Kraft hasn't actually done a bad job either. We've had players that could come in and do the job. But I feel like in the January, if Lewis is going to improve his game, he's going to need competition. So we're talking about the likes of Jetro potentially coming in this January. I think he's going to need it because the longer that Jamal Lewis has got no competition, how is he going to improve his game? Because, it's easy for a player to get sluggish. But that would be my main four. So obviously Fernandez, Kieran Clark, Javier Manquillo, and Jamal Lewis. They would be my back four. But we know that what Steve Bruce will do, he'll chop and change. And obviously in goal, if I mentioned, it would be Caldolo. I just don't see how Dubravka gets it.
Yeah. Should Dubravka ball straight in, or should he be given, the same as any other player, be coming back from, they've got to earn that place back as well. But a lot of people said no, because, we're thankful for what Darlow has done so far. But, Dubravka's our best keeper, isn't he? So, should he wall straight back in?
No, I think what you're saying is right. Darlow, for me, has not put a foot wrong this season. And like I say, if it wasn't for the way in which he's performed, and by the way, when the goals have gone past him, it actually hasn't been his fault. It's been down to those in front of him not defending properly. And sometimes with the goals going in, they've been impossible to save anyway. I mean, for example, the Matt Ritchie one on against Fulham, when it goes past him, there's nothing he can do about that. But I think for Dubravka, as much as I love him, and I think he's fantastic, like any other player, he's got to work for it. He's got to, work hard in training, and he's got to prove to the manager that he's still number one. And Darlow, for me, it's simply impossible to drop him, because as I go back to, he's been ever so good, and it would be very harsh to drop him. I think a lot of fans already, if they haven't turned on Bruce, then they would turn on Bruce, because you think you're making daft decisions. But I think Dubravka, for now, he's got a tough road back.
Yeah. Just going to jump on to midfield now. I've always found our midfield a bit of a problem, because, we've always had a raft of midfielders come in during the years, and, we've all been screaming, why we're bringing in midfielders when we need strikers. But looking at the midfield so far, we have needed that spark in midfield, and I still don't think we found it yet, really. I mean, we've got St. Max, but is he a midfielder, or is he more of a forward? We'll come up to that. But what would be your midfield perfect, really?
Right. Well, I like to play a 4-2-3-1 formation. So if you're looking at two CDMs, it's got to be Hayden and it's got to be Shelvey. I think them two, for me, they work ever so hard together. They're rock solid at the back. They'll protect the back four. But someone like Jonjo Shelvey, he likes to spray those Hollywood balls. That's what you want to see from a player like of his quality. He's got the experience at this level. Hayden, he can play in defence, as you mentioned, but you can also play in his natural CDM role. But he also likes to get forward. So I think for me, they are two best centre midfielders. Now, I would put sort of Mickey Almiron in that number 10. For me, he should not be getting pushed out wide, a bit like Jeff Hendrick, because you're not going to see the best of him. You look at Almiron, he's the type of player who he likes to pick up the ball and run. He's not a one to maybe do a 1-2 with a player. He just likes to get forward. And he has become a little bit unstuck, but it's Steve Bruce. He just puts him out, out wide. You're not going to get the best out of him. Whereas under Rafa, he was actually not that bad. At times he was played in that cam role. St. Max, as you mentioned, I would put him out on the left-hand side. I think for me, on the right-hand side, because he's got the pace to burn, but he also likes to cut in as well. You could put him in the centre of midfield, but again, we've got, Miggy Almiron, so I would like to put, ASM out wide, but maybe try and push him up front, see where the game's at. And then on the left-hand side, again, I've gone with like Joe Linton, because I feel like that's his natural position. He's not really a striker, in my opinion. So obviously, if you're playing that formation, you want ASM one side, Joe Linton on the left-hand side, and a bit like St. Maximin, just cut in and give him the service. And that's what we've been lacking, under Steve Bruce. And that's probably what Joe Linton's been lacking, is the service. But also, Joe Linton at times, when he's been played up front on his own, we know he hasn't got the pace. We know that he hasn't got that brain to put himself about like Callum Wilson. And obviously, you're going to dive onto the strikers. You know who that's going to be, Callum Wilson. Do you know what I mean? And it's important that Callum Wilson gets the service. So, like I say, my midfield, like I say, there's two CDMs, Isaac Hayden, Jonjo Shelvey. Then on the right-hand side, you've got ASM. Left-hand side, you've got Joe Linton in the cam position. Number 10 for me would be Almiron, and up front, Callum Wilson. I don't know if you would have a different sort of formation to me, or different sort of side, but for me, that's our strongest lineup possible.
Yeah. Actually, I would agree with them. I mean, you look at Joelinton at the minute as well. He's, he's been given his stick, and sometimes rightly so. But have we seen Joelinton finally the penny dropping in Joelinton? He's starting to put a few better shifts in.
He's been decent actually in the last, I would say, couple of games. Not so maybe recently against Fulham because he was a bit quiet, and against Leeds, but he showed it against Crystal Palace that if you give him, some of the ball, if you give him some service, not only can he score a goal, but he can also assist. And I feel like if Steve Bruce has been going 4-4-2, which is also not a bad formation if you don't play a fake five at the back, as I keep mentioning. If for me, I feel like the partnership between Callum Wilson and Joelinton's working, because Callum Wilson understands the Premier League. He understands the pace of it. So you look at someone like Callum Wilson, he's gave Joelinton maybe a bit of advice on how to get forward in terms of how to hurt sides. And I feel like that's the best partnership going forward in a 4-4-2. But like I say, if you're going to go 4-2-3-1, playing them out wide, it isn't bad either. But again, it's down to service, in my opinion. I think we can't keep the ball, for more than 2 seconds. We give it away, and we can't string two passes together. And that's why Joelinton can't get service. But I'm not also just sticking up for Joelinton because his game at times is poor. Like, he does track back and he is too deep. Is that down to Steve Bruce? I don't know. But you want to see Joelinton up the right end of the pitch with Callum Wilson. And you've seen it against Crystal Palace that there's something there. But it's not going to happen overnight. But he still needs to stay consistent because Joelinton's gone back to what he was maybe before that. I don't know if you noticed that against Fulham. He was very quiet. Yeah. He was very quiet against Leeds. But he needs to justify his price tag because right now he's not being worth the £40 million. Don't get me wrong, I've been his biggest critic. I'm sure a lot of fans have. But deep down as fans, you want to see the best of Joelinton, and you've seen it against Crystal Palace. But can he keep that consistency going? Under Steve Bruce, I think that's difficult for everyone.
No. And Wilson, the 8 goals in 12 games. 3 of those penalties, I think, isn't he?
Yeah, that's right. He's been decent, to be fair. If you look at his price tag, £20 million, it's an absolute steal. I was talking to an Arsenal fan the other week, and I was saying, how have you not got in for Callum Wilson? You've missed a trick. You can't score goals, but you've got someone there who, for me, should be in the England squad. And without his goals, we wouldn't be where we are in the league. So we massively rely on Callum Wilson. And we know that he's going to score more than 8 goals a season. We know that he could potentially get 15, 20 goals plus. It's all about, Callum Wilson still making those runs, being that fox in the box as he was at the start of the season. And as mentioned, with Joelinton and Callum Wilson, it's all down to the service, from that midfield and getting forward, something we struggle to do at the best of times.
Yeah, we've seen the return of Dwight Gale as well. When he's come on for his little stints, I mean, he was coming off the bench, but you can still see there's a striker in him. But he's the type of guy when you watch him play, he always looks knackered. He always looks tired from the outset. But we all know he can score goals. So could he be brought in more on a regular thing, or do you think he is just that to coin it an impact sub?
For me, Dwight Gale would be more of an impact sub. See where the game's at. You'd obviously start Callum Wilson and Joelinton. You'd start that main 11 as mentioned before. He would do a better job off the bench, like he did against West Brom. A simple kick into the box, and he's got pace. We know that when teams start to tire out, that's where he comes into action. That's where he can show his ability. He can show what he's about. Personally, as much as he scored that good goal against West Brom and won us the game, and we made it difficult for ourselves, I don't think he's good enough for Newcastle United. I don't think he's good enough for the Premier League. And as you mentioned, he said he's knackered. I think he belongs in the Championship. He proved it with West Brom scoring those double figures. He's at that age now where can he become a Jamie Vardy? No, because he hasn't got the right players around him. Do you know what I mean? And where does he fit? And obviously, with his contract running out, is it at the end of the season?
Season, yeah.
I mean, would you offer Dwight Gale a contract? I wouldn't, personally.
Yeah. That's all fair, mate. Coming on to Steve Bruce. Honestly, I couldn't resist putting that one on.
Like a Greg's mince pie.
It's Greg's mince pie, yeah. Is Steve Bruce really the laughing stock he is as a manager, or have we been unfair? But he's not exactly been. I mean, he comes out with excuse after excuse after excuse. He always blames the players rather than himself and his own damn failings. So, what would be your rating for Bruce?
What, as of how long he's been at the club for, or for the season as a whole?
Or you can do from the season, yeah.
Well, this season I'd give him a 5 because, it could be so much better. In terms of in general, I'm not a big fan of Steve Bruce, if I'm honest. Again, I'll probably just give him a slap down the middle because, given the expectations of the board, what more can we achieve? Do you know what I mean? It's going to be mid-table. It's going to be try and do well in the cups. As we know, Steve Bruce is a cup manager. Now, don't get me wrong. Yes, we stayed up last season, but again, this club should be achieving a hell of a lot more. But it's all down to the ownership, Steve Bruce, yes, is the laughing stock, and you're correct, because for me, I think he's tactically outdated. He's finished, as far as I'm concerned, in the Premier League. He's no good for Newcastle United. I can echo what probably 99.9% of the fan base are saying, that he's no good. I mean, why did you let Rafa Benitez go when he was building something and he just wanted to try and get the club into the top 7? And we're not wanting Champions League or anything like that. That's maybe later down the line with a better ownership, but at least have some ambition. And Steve Bruce, for me, it's every single either pre-match or post-match press conference. It's the book of 1,000 excuses. You know exactly what's going to happen. I wouldn't be surprised if we'll get it tonight against Brentford if something goes wrong, or if we'll get it maybe in the next few games to come. But for me, he doesn't take accountability. When the team has underperformed, sometimes you've got to come out and put your hands up and say, listen, the team didn't play very well, but it's down to me the way I tactically set up the team tonight or this afternoon. It was a case of I'm just frustrated with the things that he comes out with, and I just can't see the club ever progressing under Steve Bruce as manager or even head coach, if you like. I think he's totally lost the fan base, in my opinion. And with the next few games to come, I mean, I'm all on tonight's game against Brentford. For me, if we lose that, these jobs untenable as far as I'm concerned. If you look at the next few games coming up against Man City, Liverpool, Leicester, for me, they're all write-offs, in my opinion. We could probably get something. But if you look at the recent results, I mean, Fulham. I mean, we got totally done by Fulham. West Brom, for me, wasn't convincing either. Probably should have got them at West Brom. Leeds got humbled 5-2, could have been 10. And then for him to say, we're good for 75 minutes against Leeds. Come on, man. Do you know what I mean? Be honest with yourself. And even the players don't even want to play for him. I mean, yeah, they've got to be professional and do the job and play for the tune. But deep down, they probably can't wait for a move in January, half of them. It's for me, Steve Bruce. I've said it before, and I've said it after the Chelsea game. He's done. He should be sacked. And I even said it probably last season. I went down to Leicester away. We lost 5-0. I said it in a vlog. Steve Bruce, you're finished. But you've got to give him the benefit of the doubt. Maybe it was too early. I've seen no improvement under Steve Bruce. Nothing, honestly, and it's just depressing.
Yeah, totally. Coming on to where is St. Maximin? He's the enigma that is St. Maximin. So. He was hauled off, to my knowledge, off a flight manifesto 15 minutes before they took off. Now that you've got the media saying, yet again, he's had a bust up with Bruce. There's a lot of people in the media saying, he's one of the ones who have COVID. But we've hardly had anything from the club at all. I mean, we have had nothing from the club for many years. But, are these things that we need to be told or we need to be kept abreast of in because it's the team that we support, so we should get some of the news as well. But, is this all lies, and is this, any truths in all these? What will be your thoughts there, Charlie?
So what you're saying is absolutely right. I think the club should speak to the fans. At the end of the day, we want the best for the club regardless. But listen, under Mike Ashley's ownership, everything's kept at hush-hush, and it's all come out at the last minute, maybe to try and feel sorry for Mike Ashley. Do you know, when you see all these statements of a failed takeover and whatnot, just to try and get back on board with him. I mean, I'll never get back on board with Mike Ashley as far as he's the owner. But in terms of the whole ASM story, well, he was on his Instagram last night saying, he was absolutely fine. He wasn't down to having COVID. He hasn't fallen out with Steve Bruce. Well, we'll wait and see on that one, because the truth always comes out in the end. Now, in terms of ASM. Yeah, like where is ASM? Like if he's in France, what's he doing in France? You know, we've got a big game tonight against Brentford. It would have passed by the time this comes out. But you know, we've got some big games coming up. As mentioned, against Man City, Liverpool, Leicester. He's, if not one of our better players, and we need him in the side. So if he's not injured and he hasn't got COVID, why isn't he playing? So it's got to be down to some sort of bust up then. I mean, I'll say it's alleged, and they've all come out and said that, oh, it's not. But if that's the case, why is he not playing? Because we miss him big time. Without ASM, we don't really get forward as much. We don't have enough pace in the side.
Yeah, that is completely right. Just coming on to takeover there, mate. You know, we've got this horrible little fella here.
Can't stand the bloke.
He's been part and parcel. I mean, it's not just Masters. You know, you've got Hoffman as well, and also the beIN Sports as well has been very vocal about all this as well. What would be your thoughts on Ashley and also the consortium, and then on to, you know, the Premier League as well, and your thoughts on them?
Well, the Premier League have a vendetta against Newcastle. It's as simple as that. They don't want to see the top six become a threat to another club like Newcastle. You know, they want to keep the top six the way it is, and they just want to go along with that. You know, Newcastle, for me, we're one of the biggest clubs, you know, in England, if not the world. And Mike Ashley, for me, it's difficult to really put your finger on Mike Ashley in terms of what he wants for Newcastle United Football Club, you know, and all these prices that he's putting up the club for sale for. You know, is it correct? Does he want more? Who knows? And you know, with this whole takeover saga, you know, we seem to get it every summer, every January, and you're just thinking to yourself, can something not just materialise? Can something not just go through for the sake of the future of this football club? Because he's put next to no investment in this football club. You look at the training facilities on the floor. You look at the types of quality of players we're bringing in on the floor. Like, no disrespect to what we've got now, but we should be bringing in better quality. You know, we should be bringing in backup options. And you know, you look at the managers that we're hiring, such as Steve Bruce and Steve McLaren gone by. Come on, man. You know, this club deserves so much better. And it's just frustrating because, you know, we were all hyped up for this big takeover from the Saudi consortium in the summer. And then, unfortunately, because of what happened with the Premier League and the sort of pulling out of the deal and not really communicating with the fans or the consortium, my understanding is I still believe that the Saudis are in the background. I do believe they want to, you know, buy the football club, and you know, they're ready to put investment into the football club to steer it forward. But it's all down to one man, and it's Richard Masters. Only he can allow that takeover to go through. And for some reason, they don't seem to want to allow it happen. But you know, you look at a Man City takeover, the past, a Chelsea takeover. What's different with Newcastle to anyone else? You know, there's talk of Burnley Football Club getting, you know, bought out. How can their takeover go through, but our takeover doesn't go through? You know, do you know what I mean? It's really frustrating because the reason why we want the takeover is in order to progress, in order to go forward. Otherwise, we're just stagnating back to the Championship, and it's only a matter of when. And we're not going to be able to keep a hold of our better players, and that's been the frustration. You know, if Mike Ashley's tenure, getting rid of your better players, sell them on for more. I get it; it's a business strategy, but is it benefiting the fan base? No, it's not. You know, at the end of the day, we're paying for hard-earned money every single season to watch this club. What, for mid-table? Do you know what I mean? I don't want to sound ungrateful, or maybe we are ungrateful in terms of the media. But, you know, how can you go from being, you know, a regular top 4, top 6 club to, you know, 2 relegations and, okay, 1/5 place finish under Pardew and the rest of it being mid-table? It's pretty dull and boring, isn't it? And I mean, this is what we've got to put up with. But my understanding is there will be a takeover, but it's a case of we've got to stay patient. There's nothing more we can say or do about it. We're just going to have to let, you know, the right people talk. But I think you mentioned Richard Masters and Hoffman. I think they're both corrupt people. I think the Premier League's totally corrupt, in my opinion. It's just not the same anymore, and it's not really a fair league. So yeah.
Because you know, we both mentioned Hoffman there. You know, he was part of the Northern Rock collapse as well. So you know, he's not exactly number one in our hearts, is he? So that could be one of his reasons behind it all. We don't know. We come on, and also, you know, we talk about government as well. and that little dweeb there as well. Have government been involved in it as well?
Well, that's difficult to really say because we know that certain politicians have said a few things, like Richie Sunak was one of them. I imagine who was the other one now? His name escapes. Is Matt Hancock, who he said something before that. This was during the summer. I don't know whether or not I want to blame the government for this because obviously with what's going on, their main focus will be to try and get the economy back up and running and maybe trying to get the UK going forward again. But the government, for me, could have done more to try and investigate the Premier League, to investigate, maybe the Saudi, consortium, or they, fit and ready to buy a football club to take it forward. I mean, there's no question that they've got money. There's no question that they haven't got an ambition. But I feel like it's not down to the Saudis. It's down to the Premier League. Do you know what I mean? Being the big league, the Richard Masters who runs it, it all goes through him. And is it all down to the fact he's an Aston Villa fan? I don't want to bring that sort of politics into it, but maybe it could have something to do with that. Maybe just Richard Masters is scared to see Newcastle be successful and Villa not to win anything. But the way I see it, something has obviously gone wrong in the background for it to have dragged on the way it has done, then for something to come out. I mean, let's be honest, the communication with the Premier League has been next to nil. Do you know what I mean? It's been awful. And they expect us to enjoy the league. I mean, I can't enjoy the Premier League at the minute, the way it's formatted, the way it's going about with this whole top six. And it's only Leicester and Wolves that are making it more entertaining. But again, how long are they going to fight for before the top six get more and more money? But I believe Newcastle should be up there. We are traditionally a top six club. So, yeah, it is painful. But I suppose the way it goes on, and obviously with the government right now, I mean, their main focus will be to get the economy back on track. As much as that frustrates everyone, have they done enough? Difficult to really say. I don't think they have, but they may have a different opinion. It's really frustrating because, each season it's just going to be the old predictable mid-table football, or if it goes worse, we're going to be relegated. Do you know what I mean? And you just fear every season when others are talking about our players because we can't keep a hold of them. It's all down to Mike Ashley's money. So, yeah, my understanding is there will be a takeover, but we just have to be patient. I mean, you don't know and I don't know when this could happen. Mike Ashley could sell a football club tomorrow or next week or next month or next year when you get up and you don't expect it. It could be on Sky Sports.
Yeah. So what would be your percentage in confidence this could go through?
I've always been 50-50 with it, if I'm honest. I can't be too confident. I was in the summer, but because of what's been going on, it's dropped. Because I've been down here before with the old takeover situation of the past. You've been through with Kenyon and the Bin Zai group who are meant to be taking over Derby. I think you're just going to have to stay grounded and just see what happens. Try not to read too much into the media because, again, they only know so much. It's between the Premier League, Richard Masters, and the Saudi consortium if they're going to want to buy the club. So for me, now at this moment in time, I haven't given up, but I'm not speaking about it too much. I'm just sort of like, feet on the ground, see what happens, and fingers crossed, hopefully, maybe in January or next season, we'll have a new owner that comes in to take the club forward.
Yeah. Right, mates. Thanks for coming on. Hope you have a Merry Christmas.
You too.
And anyone who will be watching this later, when it will be available to view, hope you all have a happy New Year as well.
Yeah, thanks, Dom. Thanks for having me on. And you have a nice Christmas and Happy New Year and stay safe.
All right, mate. You too. Cheers.
Yeah, mate. How are the lads? Take it easy.
Right. Thanks very much for Sharky being on my show. It was a really short one, I'm afraid, but it's my last one before New Year. Just want to get some final thoughts in for the season and ratings, and hope you all, as I said earlier, hope you have a great New Year. Like a video, please watch it because it's nothing. Steve Wraith brought it up and put it all together, but I think it does say quite a lot of what can or is going on Twitter and other the social media platforms. Please, anyone who is touched or anyone who understands what's going on. Please speak to people, and if you get too much, then report these people as well. Don't let them ruin your lives. Don't let them rule your lives as well. They're just people who like to get a reaction from you. Don't give it to them. Just block, report. If it persists, then report it to the police as well. Things can be done, but please don't let them get you down, and especially over Christmas and New Year. Let's all have an amazing New Year. Thanks very much for watching, and here comes the video.
Think before you tweet.
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 Please just think before you tweet.
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 Think before you tweet.